Yeehaw! It's time for the Texans Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Houston Texans, every week. Bringing you the big hits, game-changing plays, and all the action straight from the Lone Star State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Saddle up and squad up. It's the Texans Squad Show, starting now.
And you know what? Sooner or later, we're actually going to be able to talk about football games on this show, the Texans Squad Show, on our normal Friday spot, 6 p.m. on a Friday. And you're looking at us right now, if you're watching us live on YouTube or if you're watching it later on, and you're going, there's only two faces on the screen tonight. Half the squad decided that they're just, they can't play every day. That's this generation, apparently. And you only get two of us tonight. You get Michael Connor, you get Stan Norfleet. Now, John's celebrating his birthday. Aisha's on a well-deserved vacation. They'll be back with us Tuesday, and we are excited to have them back. We'll get back to our look ahead to the 2025 regular season with the schedule that we've been looking at. But we got a lot of things to get into tonight, Stan. Right. It's like going back to our radio days together here. Just you and me.
There was a time that Fleet and MC did the thing on the radio, terrestrial radio here in the city of Houston, which, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say to you, MC, and to the others watching across H-Town, happy DJ Screw Day here on June 27th. The great DJ Screw, may you rest in peace, sir. Iconic in the hip-hop community. So there'll be a lot of slow singing and a lot of swinging. You know what I mean? You're going to have the slabs out. Sipping on something responsibly, if you will, of a purple variety. I did see that the Texans did acknowledge, and I think there's some apparel. I know on their social media, the Texans did acknowledge DJ Screw. So again, happy DJ Screw Day here in H-Town. And we are 72 days, just 72 days away from week one at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, Inglewood, to be specific.
I miss it, man. I've missed it more than I can believe. And the team is going to get back out there, like you mentioned, sooner rather than later. And they're going to be in training camp here in the next few weeks, which is going to be great.
Training camp dates have been announced. I don't know if you saw that the public dates, and it's on their website and on their social media. So the public knows when and where, including that open practice with the Carolina Panthers. So fans are getting more and more giddy to see what these 25 Texans have in store.
Yeah, which dates you can go out there and bake in the sun for a couple of hours. I will say this. Now, before we get to our topic here to start the show, I used to go to those as a kid, the Texans open practices, back when they did not cover the stands for the fans, and you truly did bake. It was awful. I went every freaking year, man. And I just roasted out there in the sun.
2004 training camp, still over. It wasn't the Houston Methodist Training Center then, but it was the same locale.
Yeah,
and I was interning in the corporate sales area, and it was absolutely atrocious, the heat. For those that haven't, see, y'all come down here and party in Houston, and then you go back home.
Yeah.
For those of us that live down here, or this your first time being around, scorching. It's a different sun. It absolutely is. By the way, the Texans are going back to the Greenbrier, that facility up in West Virginia, for the first time since 2018.
Well, better coach to take this time up there. Nobody yelling at you the entire time. His name Bill O'Brien. But hey, yeah, get out of the weather a little bit. I think it's still hot there, but not as hot here. Not as hot as it is here. All right, let's dive into it.
Remember last year, DeMeco and those guys, where did they stay for a week? God, didn't they stay in Cleveland or somewhere? It was around the Andre Johnson.
Yeah, you're right. It was,
They stayed somewhere for like a week and practice. They went to Caserio. They went to Ohio.
That's right, because they played in the Hall of Fame game.
Correct.
I forget that. They had 4 preseason games last year instead of 3.
They did.
This year, only 3. There's nothing I hate more than – I shouldn't say hate. It's football still, but watching preseason football is just – at times, after a while, it gets a little rough.
Well, you know what? It doesn't count, MC, but it matters.
It does matter. It matters for a lot of guys in their livelihood. And there's going to be a lot of guys that are out there playing for the Texans here in preseason that are going to be fighting for spots. And some of the spots, look how we transition here. Some of the spots that they could be looking to fill, we've talked a lot about the cornerback spot. And ESPN.com has something up today, Stan, from, I forget who had it, Aaron Schatz. I hope we're saying his name right.
Yeah, it's Aaron Schatz.
Okay. One move for each team before the 2025 or before camp gets going here. And the Texans move, as you would expect, because they had the loss of Ronald Darby, who retired in June. And something that we've talked about a lot is the cornerback position. And he has them down as they should go out and they should sign Rasul Douglas. Now, Stan, you tell me, would a Rasul Douglas addition to this team make you excited at all going into training camp that, hey, maybe the depth isn't as bad at a spot that on the high end, they're really good, but we do worry about what's behind it?
Yeah, I thought the Rasul Douglas, the suggestion by Mr. Schatz of ESPN.com, it's interesting. It's a name that we have kicked around before. It's not a name that I thought would be available, according to who was that? Aaron Wilson, who's on the local beat here for the Texans, mentioned that his estimation is that Rasul Douglas had agreed to a pretty hefty offer, relatively speaking, to go to the Miami Dolphins, given they don't know what they're going to do with Jalen Ramsey. Is Ramsey going to be a hold-in during training camp? Don't know. And the Dolphins need secondary help, even with Ramsey being on the market. So Rasul Douglas, I covered him when I was on the beat with the flagship station, WFNZ in Charlotte, when he was with the Carolina Panthers. Still 29 years old, been in the league 8 years, most recently with the Buffalo Bills the last 2 seasons. 29 years old, mentioned previously a third-round pick in 2017 out of West Virginia University. He was bad with Buffalo last year, just wasn't good. And the write-up on Schatz, he didn't have any interceptions in 15 games started for a good Bills team. We know they played in the AFC Championship game, but no real stats of note. However, in 2023 for those same Buffalo Bills, according to Coverage DVOA, which is just a advanced defensive, or they do it for offense as well. It's just an advanced stat. He was third best corner in 9 games played, 8 starts. So he has some good film for Buffalo in 2023. This is his 4th team. He's a versatile corner, can play some inside nickel, can also play on the perimeter, still in his 20s, as I mentioned. I don't hate it. I don't necessarily love it. I do love it more than the Damon Arnett signing, which is now official, coming over from the UFL's Rough Riders here in Houston. But it's not one that I think you aren't going to Baltimore and beating Kansas City, or going to Baltimore, beat Baltimore, the same for Kansas City because you have Rasul Douglas, but it does add some insurance.
Yeah, and if they're going to those places and winning those games and their cornerbacks are highlighting, I mean, we know that it's going to come down to, of course, Stingley going out there and making plays, and everybody else going out there making plays like they do consistently. It's not going to be about Rasul Douglas at all. Like, it's a body, and I think that you're, mentioning Miami thing, I think is the interesting part of this, because if he is just sitting on an offer waiting, why would you as the Texans go out there and extend more than what he's going to get? I don't know. He doesn't seem like a player that, like, kind of like Arnett maybe. He didn't move the needle for me. That's not something like, oh, my goodness, I think the Texans are this much better because they got him. Yeah, it's a body, but, like, is this a guy that if they brought him to camp, I mean, I guess it would depend on the money, that he's even guaranteed a spot on the team? Like, to me, he feels like
he's good enough. Yeah,
Okay.
He started a lot of games in the National Football League. I don't have the exact number in front of me. He is on his 4th team. I'll come back to that in just a second. But Rasul Douglas is a guy, again, a former 3rd-round pick. Not that specifically is of note, but he does add you a depth. I'll say it this way. It would be very similar to the Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson signings that the Texans added a year ago. 2 guys that have some talent, played in a lot of NFL games. You can go start with Rasul Douglas if Kamari Lassiter missed some games. You can go out there and he can start for you and not kill you. Again, 15 games started for a good Buffalo Bills team a year ago. And he does add competitive depth. It's not just a name and a body. It's somebody that can actually give you something. I do appreciate the versatility. I understand the mentioning of Rasul Douglas, who John Hickman and Aisha have both mentioned on this program previously, is just thought to be the money. And this reporter, Mr. Aaron Schatz, he might not know what Aaron Wilson has shared, that the Dolphins do have a pretty lucrative offer. This could be about just getting his body right. This could have I don't want to go to minicamp and OTAs. You could see something come down the pike here in just a little bit. The thing that I will finish with in terms of Rasul Douglas, the versatile corner that was with Buffalo the last 2 years, look at the teams he's played for, right? You think about starting his career in Philadelphia, perennially one of the most competitive teams in the National Football League, excuse me. You think about had a stop there in Carolina for just one season, but then you go to Buffalo that I mentioned, and who else am I missing? I'm missing somebody else for him.
Was it Green Bay? Did you say Green Bay?
It was Green Bay. Yep, it was Green Bay. So you start thinking about Green Bay, Philly, Buffalo. That's good NFL pedigree. Where you're playing real games, late, meaningful games in December and January. And I think that stuff matters when you start talking about a team in the Texans that's in a Super Bowl window and vying for their first ever AFC Championship game appearance.
Yeah. Look, I overall wouldn't have a problem with making the addition there. If for some reason this guy could also just want to live in, hang out in South Beach at this point. Like, it's the end of his career. There's that is an appeal. Like, I never understand it, but there is an appeal to playing for the Dolphins for some guys.
Yeah, for sure. You're a young dude. You know what I mean? You got a decent quarterback. You got some weapons on the perimeter. They've been banged up on defense. Bradley Chubb. They also had a young pass rusher. I forget the kid's name. That popped his Achilles last season or the season before. Nonetheless, they've got some there. I think this is more so wishful thinking. He's probably the best of the youth and affordable DBs, cornerbacks specifically, that are out there. But I disagree with Mr. Shaz. I don't think it's necessarily the cornerback room that keeps me up at night for the Texans. Outside of the wide receiver room, I saw another article that got me to thinking about a different position group, and it's that group in front of the secondary that gives me some trepidation.
Well, we're going to get deeper into that in just a second. I did want to mention one thing from this article real quick. Did you see who he has going to who the Jags should sign?
No.
Former Texan, Jadeveon Clowney. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that Clowney was still banging around in the league. I forgot.
Clowney is one of those, man, like, he still has some tread on those tires. I know he was up in Baltimore a season or so ago, and right at this point, he's a
Carolina last year, 5.5 sacks.
Went back to home. Yeah. He's from the South Carolina, Rock Hill, South Carolina area is just outside. It's a suburb of Charlotte, if you will. I know it very well. So I could see him going to Jacksonville, being somebody to fill in for Josh Hines-Allen and or Trayvon Walker. They're starters on the edge there. He's still versatile enough, and his metrics, Jadeveon Clowney against the run, still pop. He still can do some things, and I say pop relative to his age and injury history.
I'm waiting out some dogs for a second. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry about me. I had some dude.
Somebody came home. I know. Somebody came home. I think my wife came home, and that just going nuts. Let's go to that linebacker room. We'll do it after this quick little message here on the Locked on Texans Squad Show. Let me tell you guys right now about Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike usual pills, that take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. The traditional options haven't worked. Rugiet might be the answer, with over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. It's a squad show on a Friday. I'm Michael Connor. That's Stan Norfleet. Aisha and Stan are not with us today. Or you are Stan, I'm sorry. Aisha and John are not with us today. They will be back on Tuesday. They're enjoying some time off. We'll get back into our discussion on the schedule. We looked ahead to the first 4 games in our last visit with the 4 of us on Tuesday. You can join us Tuesdays and Fridays. Of course, you can find this show anywhere that you get your podcast. Search Locked on Texans. It's available on that page. You also get John's daily work with the Locked on Texans show as well. All right, Stan, you talked about in that first segment another part of the defense. Now, we have done a ton of discussion. We truly have. We make fun of it when we're talking about it, but it's true. We do a lot of focus on the offensive side of things because I think that's where the biggest amount of holes clearly are for this football team. We are the most confident that this team's going to show up and play defense this year. But there are parts of that defense that, well, look, they do have question marks. We're not so necessarily worried about the pass rush. We've gone through our cornerback stuff, but you have some worry about the linebacker spot. And why is that?
Well, again, it's not the end-all, be-all, but here's me, doing some Stanalytics, looking at what Pro Football Focus has to say about the 2025 Texans roster. And they break every team out by position group, and they have the Texans linebacking core ranked 23rd in the National Football League of 32 teams, obviously. And so the write-up is pretty simple. You've got Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry To'oTo'o, and when healthy, Christian Harris in that 4-3 base defense that DeMeco runs. Now, the Texans spend a considerable amount of time, as does most teams in the National Football League, in the sub packages, the nickel packages, i.e. Jalen Petre's your nickel defender. You have 2 linebackers, and you add a 6 DB, which is customary around the National Football League. The problem is Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o, they excel in more of a run stuff capability and capacity. That's really where their strong suits lie. EJ Speed is another guy that I think, hearing him on the flagship of the Texans earlier this week, he's very excited to play in a DeMeco Ryans defense. DeMeco, a former linebacker himself, obviously can get the guys lined up and just find some of those finite points to really take his game and take the position group to the next level. But you got Azeez and Henry To'oTo'o, and by the way, EJ Speed is a better run defender than he is in coverage. You combine those 3, if Christian Harris is healthy, he's clearly the best coverage linebacker of the bunch. But you haven't seen Christian Harris. He started 3 regular season games last year. He was on the field a ton, or was on the field, I should say, for the Chargers playoff game, but he only played in like 12% of the defensive snaps prior to his benching. So we don't know what his health is. We don't know when we will see him. They tell us he's on pace to be back, but then you're saying, Christian Harris, you are solely responsible for not only getting healthy, but you're responsible for Travis Kelce not catching 7 balls for 117 yards and a touchdown in what was a 9-point defeat at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. The pass coverage from a linebacking position is an area that I wonder if Nick Caserio and DeMeco will address, whether that be after roster cutdowns and training camp into the preseason and so forth. Because I looked at the available linebackers, and there's just not a ton out there of recognizable names, but maybe some folks that could add some depth. I think the answer may be on someone else's roster.
I have no disagreement to the fact that they were bad at covering tight ends last year. And I think that there's a lot of teams that fall into that category in today's NFL because they've exploited matchups. So we know teams exploit that matchup because, well, linebackers typically just aren't quick enough to go out and do that, even though we're making linebackers smaller and smaller, it seems like these days too. And we do change up defensive schemes like you mentioned.
And the formations, while you're on that point.
Yeah.
The teams are putting formations where you start getting these flex tight ends. You're seeing they just had tight end I overheard, who was that? That was 49ers tight end George Kittle. He was the spokesman and was really the one that founded or arranged tight end They were out in Nashville. I don't know if Dalton Schultz.
I'm about to say, did Dalton Schultz get an invite?
I'm not sure if Dalton Schultz went. They said the numbers have been growing. Some 80-plus NFL tight ends were at this thing. And one of the conversations was about, like, today's game. So if you're going to get past Happy, you put a tight end that's versatile like a George Kittle that can hurt you up on the line of scrimmage in line, but you can also flex him out. And so it creates a dynamic where the defensive play caller do I go with nickel or do I put 3 linebackers out there? And you're constantly playing that game by formation as well as down and distance, which is why which is why I know the Texans were very adamant in paying a versatile piece like when you think about a Jalen Petrie, a guy that can maybe fill in that rover or that nickelback role. Some teams call it the star or the money position, given whether you're in nickel or dime. So what I'm saying that they may need to look to add from a traditional linebacker role, maybe they think about Petrie is playing some of those types of roles, not just from a nickel spot, but having some snaps where he's identified as an outside linebacker.
Yeah, it was real quick. I've got a picture here of Tight End University of all the attendees, and I was trying to look through them real quick. I don't think I see Dalton. There's a lot. And there's a lot.
Yeah, there's like 85 dudes, I think they say. There's a ton of them out there, and it grows every year.
Yeah, and I was just trying to see if there's any text on it, but they did they done a really bad job of putting together the graphic where you can read the names. I'm not going to lie, they're all in tuxedo shirts. I don't recognize a lot of these guys because, well, they play with helmets on.
Right.
But we'll see. I don't think Dalton Schultz.
So who's that tight end room, right? You obviously got Dalton. You've got Irv Smith Jr. You got Brevin Jordan as he looks to get himself healthy. You bring in Luke Lachey, a 7th-round draft selection out of Iowa. So is it the most competitive tight end room? I would say probably not. But at the end of the day, it's important. You know, you look at the teams that are playing well, that you got to have that tight end position. Look at what the tight end room has done in Baltimore. You know, you know what it's done in San Francisco, the Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City. So that tight end room is certainly uber important.
So then you have to defend it. Like we'll get back to our linebacker part.
The linebackers, right? Yeah.
You know, I'm going to give my hot take. I know you're probably going to crush me for it. I feel like now I'm not talking about from the standpoint of defending tight ends. I'm just talking about in general. I feel like the linebacker spot is a spot where you can always find guys. It's a lot like the running back spot. I just feel like I'm not saying that all the positions they're going to be great. I just feel like you can always find somebody that's going to be league average somewhere that you can plug in there. We see so many guys all the time. Like I think of the great example for me was a few years ago when they had Blake Cashman. The guy he couldn't latch on really anywhere. He comes here and he plays the linebacker spot really well, and he goes and gets paid.
He gets paid by Minnesota, goes back home to Minnesota. He flashed, I believe, up in New York. I think he had a moment with the Jets. Same thing. Now, to your point, many people believe he played his best ball because he's being coached by DeMeco.
Yeah.
So that may be the thinking to what you just alluded. And
maybe I am biased by the fact that they have a linebacker as a head coach.
And a damn good linebacker and a guy that, you know, has certainly cut his teeth going up against someone and getting his pound of flesh has DeMeco versus some of the best play callers offensively in the National Football League. So DeMeco may be thinking, not only, you know, if I get Christian healthy and To's going to make the next step and EJ Speed is going to be a part of that depth, I think he's going to beat out Henry. Maybe it's Toto and Christian Harris, you know, they don't have to rush his recovery. And so it's EJ Speed, Toto, and then you got Aziz. But I just start thinking about, to your point, they won some games last year with Jake Hansen and Neville Hewitt having to play some linebacker due to suspension and injury, suspension by Aziz Al-Shire. So that's something that you can consider. I'm not one to poo-poo the linebacker position. No, it's not more of a thumper concept the way of the NFL that I was around and certainly came out of and was a prospect for. But you still got to remember, like Pro Football Focus, for example, which is where this conversation derived from. 4 of the top 5 linebacking units, Philadelphia, Detroit, Kansas City, and Washington. By my count,
teams. What a shock.
Yeah, by my count, you got Philly and Washington played in the NFC Championship game. There's Kansas City that played in the AFC Championship game, and Detroit a year ago, they played in the NFC Championship game. So what that tells me is that the linebacker position is still important. And I juxtapose that in comparison to look at how the NFL got back to running the football. Joe Mixon here in Houston, Saquon Barkley for the champion Philadelphia Eagles, Josh Jacobs, what he did for the Green Bay Packers, Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. So you start looking at Austin Eckler had a really nice year in Washington. We know that they have Brian Robinson Jr. So those two, it's going to constantly be that chess match. So I don't hate what you had to say there, MC, but I just look at that linebacker room, and if there was somewhere to circle, I would go, let's see what DeMeco can do there with these roster cut downs as we get into training camp and into the preseason.
I mean, yeah, look, I would, if they went out and added a linebacker, would I be mad about it? No, of course not. I mean, any kind of depth that's better than what you have now, I mean, who's going to be upset about it?
Texans Tangents tells us, MC, he did some research. No Texans went to tight end U in Nashville. Okay. And they also I neglected to include Cade Stover.
Yeah, I was looking for him on there.
Yep, Cade Stover's in that Texans. So they have some depth. They have some bodies. They have some guys that have played some good NFL football. It's about just putting it together. And Dalton Schultz, and I made the statement on this show, must have been maybe 2 shows ago here. It's Dalton Schultz, and it's a wide margin before you get to the next best Texans tight end, and I stand on that.
I think the best tight end better be Cade Stover this year. I think he better. I don't know, man. Dalton Schultz really bore me out last year.
It's interesting, the conversation about Schultz. We like to say that Bobby Slowick went rogue and he just disgruntled and some players were turned off and he wasn't putting guys like, okay, I think we're going to see some of Schultz's best ball given that offensive coordinator, newly appointed, first time at the position. I say it every show. Yeah. You know, Nick Caley is coming over here from the Rams. You know, let's see if Nick Caley can put Dalton Schultz not just in the best position. We talk about DeMeco coaching and getting the best out of guys. Maybe Nick Caley, a former tight end position coach in his own right, can get Dalton Schultz in the best possible position. But Dalton plays on offense. That linebacker room, I need Christian Harris to get healthy because if he does not, I don't know that they have anyone that can down in, down out, run with some of these flex tight ends in these split formations.
I mean, I think Christian Harris might be the biggest non-talked about X factor on this team this season, given how he looked early and then that he has not been available to them. Like, if they get him healthy, yeah, I think your view on their defense changes even more, and we worry less about any level of deficiency if they've got him. Because I like the rest of their linebacking core. It's just about him, and if he's out there.
I agree. And you also, in thinking about the depth at the linebacker position, MC, when you're talking about adding your 5th, 6th linebacker, you're really needing guys that can also play special teams. Yeah. And that, so when you start thinking about who fits that bill, I don't know who they like. So I would strictly be speculating about what available linebackers are there and who fits. But just keep your eye on that coverage. They're going to need some people in there. Some of these, you're playing a first place schedule. Some of these teams are going to spread you out and make you put that sub package on the field. And we know Petrie, unfortunately, it's just a rap sheet. He has missed some games. So they can prepare for Petrie to be in that role. But what if he is unavailable because of the attrition that the NFL forces you to engage?
Yep. Let's just hope for health all season long. We don't have to talk about these issues as they pop up. Let's talk about another ranking that has come out that has ranked a Houston head coach in a spot that do we agree with or not? That's next here on the Locked on Texans Squad Show. Need to tell you guys real quick about the Gametime app. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time, like I mentioned, great last-minute deals and zone deals for big savings like 10% off exclusive deals for the FIFA Club World Cup matchups. You better get in on this. And as I mentioned before, the seat views in the app before you buy. You'll know exactly what your seat looks like before you get there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It's a Squad Show Friday with half the squad. I'm Michael Connor. That's Stan Norfleet. Aisha and John will be back with us on Tuesday. They're enjoying their well-deserved time off from the show. Hoping that they're having a great time. Hope that they miss us, Stan. That's what I really hope, is that they're just like sitting around and going, God, I miss those guys.
Doubtful, but at least we showed them the respect by not going to grab some people off the street, as the Texans are going to look to do. We could have picked up somebody off the practice heat, off the roster cut down from some show in Waco, but we didn't do it. We kept
Waco catching the strays today.
I just had to think of some random Waco. I don't have a problem with Waco. I got
I don't know. I can't tell you I've spent any time in Waco, but I know
where trips to Waco.
I know where Waco is. I do know that. Let's talk about the head coach of the Houston Texans now. Some rankings from Pro Football Focus caught your eye, Stan, and it involved the top coaches in this league. And tell me what the problem is here.
So while I was looking at that linebacker article for Pro Football Focus, they got us thinking about the Texans ranked, according to Pro Football Focus, the 23rd best or worst linebacking unit, likely or mostly due to the lack of ability to cover from a personnel standpoint, at least their grading system. These linebackers, head coaches, pull this up here. According to PFF, the top 10 returning head coaches in the league.
I'm going to guess number one was probably the easiest pick of them all.
Who you got? Who you got number one?
Oh, it's Andy Reid. Not even close, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Andy Reid, first ballot Hall of Famer. Andy Reid, self-explanatory. So basically it goes Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, John Harbaugh in Baltimore, Mike Tomlin, Jim Harbaugh's back with the LA Chargers. We know that the Texans got the best of Jim in that wild card round of the 2024 NFL playoffs. Kyle Shanahan, DeMeco's former boss, there at the 7th spot. Super Bowl champion Nick Sirianni, his second Super Bowl appearance. First victory for the Eagles and Sirianni this past season. And then we get a little dicey. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell with the Lions at 9, albeit they were in the NFC Championship game a year ago. And Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland comes in at the 10th spot. No DeMeco Ryans, top 10 in the league. Now, this is a bleeping problem, and I'm going to lose it, but let's get some reaction from you before I go and blow my top off there.
I just want to give my quick ones that I look at, and I think that Sean Payton is number 2 is a little wild to me. I know that he's got a Super Bowl and everything, but he's been back for 1 year. I need to see.
He had the Broncos looking really good with a rookie in Bo Nix.
Yeah.
So he's getting a lot of credit for that.
I think, God, to me, it's John Harbaugh or Sean McVay that comes in at number 2, likely. Tomlin's definitely a top 10 coach at this point. At what point do we start to ding him for not winning playoff games? Because it's been a while since they won playoff games. Jim Harbaugh, it is what it is. Kyle Shanahan to me is the most overrated coach ever. I just can't do it with the Kyle Shanahan love all the time. I think it's a little disrespectful to Nick Sirianni to be so low for a guy that literally has won a Super Bowl.
That roster is stacked. Howie Roseman has done him a solid. So this could be PFF saying, dude, you anybody in there, they can win with that bunch.
The one that obviously does not belong here is Kevin Stefanski. He has no business being top 10. I'm a massive Dan Campbell fan. Maybe I just buy into the football guy of him, the grittiness. So I just
kneecaps?
Yes, I love the man. I love listening to the man. I love his press. I feel like look, it makes me wish I was an NFL player. Listen to like you would love to play for that guy. Yeah, and I know you probably would too.
Yeah, you can respect it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he, top 5? No, probably not. I just would put him higher just because I love him. So DeMeco belongs in that top 10. To me, the clear problem with this list is that they've put a guy that's in Cleveland. Now, look, I know the circumstances in Cleveland are terrible, but then when I go watch the Browns, there's nothing that guy does that's special. He's not scheming things up constantly that are like better than everybody else. I don't know. I don't get it.
So Kevin Stefanski, I think, is getting some love here because of what he's done in Cleveland and the annual ineptitude of a defunct franchise like the Cleveland Browns. We remember 2023, CJ and Will Anderson's rookie year, DeMeco's first year on the job. The Browns come over here off Kirby and they get thumped. And Kevin Stefanski, who somehow Kevin Stefanski in year 2 of DeMeco's reign just edges out DeMeco Ryans to get coach of the year. So it's what Stefanski has done. Nick Chubb goes down 2 years ago. He's winning games with Joe Flacco at 40-something years of age out there. So that's what that's about. I agree with you. Stefanski does not belong on that list. And no, I don't think Dan Campbell deserves to be rated ahead of our very own DeMeco Ryans. Let's do a deep dive on DeMeco, shall we? I mentioned this last week. I'll come back to that. DeMeco, obviously, 2 years on the job, 2 playoff wins under his belt, 4 total playoff games. I also look at what DeMeco has done, and some people will say this is probably why DeMeco's getting knocked. Yeah, he's 9-3 versus the 3 teams in the division. He's 3-1 versus all 3 of them, but 9-3. 22-16 is DeMeco Ryans overall, including the postseason. That's a 57% win percentage. That's higher than Kyle Shanahan. That's higher than Kevin Stefanski, who has a losing record as a head coach at 47% win percentage. And it's also DeMeco Ryans 57% higher than Dan Campbell. So it just makes me look at this thing and go, okay, where was the franchise when DeMeco took it over? You're coming off the AD, that's life after Deshaun, which was a cluster. You know you had to clean that mess up. Caserio did a very nice job with that. And DeMeco, with a rookie quarterback, takes this team to the postseason, a team that, mind you, had won, 11 games in the prior 3 seasons before he showed up. I can continue to make reasons. How healthy is that defense? It was statistically a Super Bowl caliber defense a year ago. So you also judge coaches by what they do with their requisite sides of the ball. The defense is the healthiest part of this team this year, based on what we saw in the 2024 season. So when you add all that up, I couldn't make room. Oh, by the way, Kevin Stefanski 1-2 in the postseason, and Dan Campbell is also 2-2, same record as DeMeco in the postseason, but he's over there in the NFC where he can avoid the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen. So DeMeco's he has a better or at least as good of a resume, and he's doing it against stricter or tougher competition.
I think when I think about this list and guys that maybe got disrespected of being outside the top 10, DeMeco's definitely, I think, in the mix. I don't know if I'd have a problem if somebody put him like 11 or 12 or 13, just because, offensively. And look, that's part of the head coach, right? Like, I love Dan Campbell, and I know that a lot of Dan Campbell's success, at least we believe, is from the systems that were in place from the coordinators that he had.
Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator, not a head coach in Chicago.
We're going to see how he responds to that. I think that, and you know this, football, sometimes when you have a great leader, can transcend some of that, and you have to hire the right people. There's no doubt about it. And look, we're about to see that test case with DeMeco Ryans. Has he hired the right person on the offensive side of things to fix their issues? Because last year they were abysmal at times to watch as a fan, and really any football connoisseur probably out there. But when I look at that list and I go, guys that maybe got disrespected, where's Kevin O'Connell? I watch Kevin O'Connell's offenses, and I know it's just offense, but I watch his teams too. I think he's a great coach. And I think if he gets this, they get the quarterback spot right with McCarthy, they're going to be a contender every year in a tough division too.
So I think Kevin O'Connell might not have made this list given the short sample size, may have also caught DeMeco as well. I mean, look at these names. These guys have been coaching forever in the National Football League. Sean Payton and Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin and John and Jim Harbaugh. I mean, these guys are staples in the National Football League. So it just might be a small sample size there. Now, DeMeco, in looking at his resume, you know, there are some things that and I don't think Pro Football Focus is just, or in this article, went as deep as I'm about to go. But I brought this up in our last show. DeMeco Ryans is 3-3, coming with, I should say, with more than a week. That means a bye week to start the year. When you have some time to prepare, or playing on a Wednesday and Thursday night, as they did, was that Christmas Day versus the Ravens when Beyonce was in town. Shocker. Beyonce, Cowboy Carter's in town tonight and tomorrow.
I'll be there Sunday. Pray for me.
Oh, you're going on Sunday. Maybe it's tomorrow and Sunday. Yeah, Monica's going over there as well. So
I got dragged, man. I shouldn't say dragged. I'm being a good husband. She wanted me to go with her. I'm going with her.
I'm just being a driver. I'm the driver.
There you go.
Doesn't Beyonce have a song, Partition? I don't know that she's
I don't know
singing.
any of her music. I don't listen to music. So that's my first problem.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Brandon just let me know it's tomorrow and Sunday. So yeah, I'll be dropping some folks off. But point being, DeMeco, with time to prepare, his teams are 500. Don't love that. Only one of those wins on the road outside of that meaningless Week 18 game versus the Titans a year ago. So there's that. I don't think Pro Football Focus is taking that into consideration. But from a championship standpoint, and some of those names, we talked about Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh's got a Super Bowl. Sean McVay has a Super Bowl. Sean Payton has a Super Bowl. So does Andy Reid. Sirianni has a Super Bowl. So I think there's something too, and I'm just using this to fit this in here. 2/3 of the NFL going into 2025, 2/3 of the coaches in the NFL have an offensive background.
Yeah.
I think that matters. In terms of teams with a defensive-minded head coach that are winning the whole thing, you got to go back to Belichick in 2019, and anybody not named Belichick, you got to go all the way back to 2013 to Pete Carroll and what he did with Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom there in Seattle. That's 11 seasons since Pete Carroll that you've had a defensive-minded head coach. It's just something I understand. DeMeco's done a great job. What he's done, the swarm mindset and mentality, completely flipping this culture here in Houston, which was a laughingstock prior to his arrival. And I have told DeMeco to his face, I say it every time that I can, you have my respect, you have my support, but I also have a job to do in being objective in how I cover this team. And this is a big year for DeMeco. He's now on his second offensive coordinator, and he's got his side of the ball flying around. But they got to make sure if he's going to be mentioned in lists like this, again, knowing that he was a Coach of the Year runner-up to Kevin Stefanski, the name of the game is finishing his drill and hosting a Lombardi trophy. And I'm going to need them to tighten up in some of those holes in DeMeco's game. But it's uncalled for that he's left off this list from Pro Football Focus.
Yeah. I'm the one that's going to kill me. It's going to be the Kevin Stefanski one.
Stefanski, yeah.
But you know what? Maybe Cleveland deserves something nice, right? They got to deal with Deshaun and a guaranteed contract, and we got out of it, and we ended up in Houston with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. Probably one of the best nights in Texans history when that happened.
Speaking of C.J., I think we're going to talk about him in a little bit.
I think we are here in just a second. We have in light of the NBA draft happening last night, a little bit of Texans draft history next here on the Locked On Texans Squad Show. Thank you for spending your Friday night with us. If you're live on the Texans Squad Show, if you're listening to this later on, also thank you. It's available wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching live, it's typically posted podcast-wise within 30 minutes of the show ending because it takes a minute to download an hour-long show. We're here with you Tuesdays and Fridays, 6 p.m. I'm Michael Connor. He's Stan Norfleet. John Hickman and Aisha Morrison are also typically with us. They have the night off tonight. They'll be back with us Tuesday at 6 as we'll be discussing another day closer to Texans football in 2025. I guess we already had football. Did they play? They played in January, didn't they? The playoff game was in January. So we've technically had football already in 2025, but it's months ago at this point. It was too long ago.
25 seasons, 72 days.
72 days. It feels like it's creeping up really quick on you, but it also feels like it's still way too far away. Like, I love baseball, but I'm ready for football to be back.
Yeah, Strohs keep me tight until I can get my Texans back on the screen. Then I have to make sure I keep the main thing. But first practice to the I believe that first practice to the public is on the 23rd. But go to your requisite Texans intel and get those specifics on that. I know they got some stuff up on the site, social media, and the like. So God willing, I'll be out there sweating my butt off and trying to bring whatever nuggets and tidbits I can to this broadcast.
Yeah, you and John get out there and bring us some info. I'm probably not invited to things anymore because it's whatever. No, I don't think I said anything to piss them off. I went out. I think the last time I went out was in 2020, before DeMeco's first season. I went out to a training camp practice.
I went to training camp 2024. I was doing some local radio in the market, as you know. So they do a good job. The McNair family does a great job, which also reminds me, the players vote very favorably of the conditions over there at NRG, according to that NFL Players Association survey. They also speak, going back to our coaches segment, for those that may have missed that last one, the Pro Football Focus not having DeMeco Ryans in the top 10. The players, nearly 1,500 players, they gave DeMeco Ryans an A. Yeah. In terms of him as the coach of this program. So anyway, there's that. Training camp coming soon.
Coming soon. And since we're at that point where we can be honest about it, this is where we do our topics that we love to have in the middle of the summer, because you can't. There's literally no football being played right now. NBA draft was this past week in Houston. We didn't have anything locally because the Rockets traded away their draft pick to the Phoenix Suns to get Kevin Durant, and the second round pick for that matter. So, but with that in mind, with the draft just finishing, I figured we go back and see where we stand. The Texans have a pretty interesting draft history. Of course, they've gone through GMs from Charlie Casserly to Rick Smith to Brian Gain to Bill O'Brien to Nick Caserio.
Jack Easterby.
Oh yeah, I forgot Easter. But yeah, did he run a draft? I don't remember.
He was influential in the organization.
God, man, I thank the Lord those days are behind us. That was the roughest 2 years or year, whatever it was.
It's just embarrassing. You have a motivational speaker impacting draft selections.
Making millions of dollars a year. Millions.
Good on him. He convinced the McNair family to let him do it. Nonetheless, Caserio's at the driver's seat now, and things look considerably better.
Yeah, so with that in mind, now look, the first pick in the draft this past week in the NBA was Cooper Flagg, and people in Dallas think that he's going to be a generational type of star. I mean, you could look at the Texans draft history and wonder how many of generational type of stars they have, but they've got a few. I've never had this question for you. I'm interested to see where you're going to go with it. If you're going to give me who's the best Texans draft pick to ever stand, who is it?
The best Texans,
the best they've ever had, the best pick, the number one pick that the best selection they've ever made.
This may be a bit controversial given that Andre Johnson was just inducted into the Hall of Fame. J.J. Watt will be a first ballot walk-in. You might as well size him up right now for his gold jacket. We just talked about the D. Watt 4 era, meaning the Deshaun Watson era, and how good he was when he was right, when he was healthy, and what they were doing, making the postseason, winning division. The answer to me unequivocally, even though it will get some debate, which is what I do, is C.J. Stroud.
Already? 2 years in? It's too early.
C.J. Stroud, the second overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft, given where the Texans were, having won just 11 games in the 3-year period prior to his arrival, Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2023 under an average offensive line, and a first-time play caller in Bobby Slowick, first-time head coach in DeMeco Ryans. and he goes out there and goes to work. He follows that up in a campaign that wasn't as impressive in 2024, yet and still another division title, another playoff win in the wild card round, and having his team on the cusp in a competitive game up there for a while there in Kansas City. C.J. Stroud, already 4 playoff games played. Do you know that that's as many playoff games as Andre Johnson played in his career?
Well, I mean, you can't knock him for that. He played with David Carr for most of it.
Hey, I get it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying what C.J. Stroud's resume suggests. C.J. Stroud right now, hear me clearly. I'm not saying he's the best player that has ever been drafted to the Houston Texans. I think by the time, mostly by position, that we finish this conversation, he will be. But right now, C.J. Stroud is the best draft selection. Him playing quarterback and what he's done also in the postseason has a lot to do with that. Who would say you?
I think it's a very, very easy pick. It's the only pick that you can make. It's J.J. Watt, and it's just not even close. Because of, I mean, look, you look at what he did. And first of all, the man should have walked away with an MVP award. You're never going to get me off that hill. They gave it to Aaron Rodgers that year. He was the most valuable player in the league that season.
Rodgers plays quarterback, of course.
Yeah, I know. It's so stupid that we don't give the award to players at other positions. It's one of the things that drives me nuts. It's most valuable player. Okay, they play the most valuable position. I understand that. But there can be years where a player plays a different position and is the most valuable player. Drives me nuts. Then rename the award, just best player award.
So that's why JJ got those defensive
player of the year. So I mean, he's one of, I believe, 3 players to win 3 of them. Him and Lawrence Taylor and Aaron Donald, I believe, are the 3 that have done it. He's probably one of the 10 greatest defenders of all time. If his career wasn't, marred with injury a few times, I mean, we're talking probably in the top 5 in sacks all time, and that really dinged him a lot because he missed, I think, 3 or 4 years basically with that. But to still, I don't know. Watching his career, and to me, he was the beginning of the franchise becoming respectable. You're talking about CJ elevating the franchise now where they're at, which is without a doubt, that's true, because they were a dumpster fire before he got him. But JJ and that group took the Texans from a complete laughingstock who had never made the playoffs before to a team that made the playoffs. And if Matt Schaub doesn't get his foot stepped on by a fat Albert Hainsworth, we might be talking about the Texans playing at least in an AFC championship game that season because they were so good defensively and on the offensive line. It was just absurd. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's Watt. He can be passed by CJ without a doubt because CJ is going to play that position for a very long time as long as he stays healthy and going to put up a ton of numbers, I'm sure. But right now, I think it's got to be the guy who's got more accolades than anybody in this franchise's history.
Only one guy's in the Hall of Fame right now. We mentioned that is Drake. For an apples-to-apples standpoint, JJ did play in 9 playoff games. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I just think by position, you got to have a guy to drive it. And I think CJ he's in it right now. He's got this team positioned to compete for a Super Bowl. They need some things to fall right. However, and listen, this is not minimizing anything that Justin James White did for the Texans organization. We are extremely grateful and pay him that respect. And there's a reason. He and Andre are both in the Ring of Honor, and JJ, again, will have his gold jacket. But just what C.J. Stroud has done. I remember Patrick Mahomes saying he didn't even know really what he was doing on Sundays, truly have command until his 3rd season. C.J. is going into his 3rd season, and he doesn't have Andy Reid. When the light bulb truly goes on for CJ, the Texans in this porous division are going to be laying folks out left and right. And I believe the Texans will play in the AFC Championship game sooner as opposed to later. So then CJ will have done something for the organization no other player of that ilk had done in previous Texans lore. Let me also add this, if I get you to comment on this, because I would be remiss, shame on me, given that I'm an ACC guy especially. When you talk about Texans draft selections, and we already mentioned, again, Andre Johnson, J.J. Watt, C.J. Stroud, Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry, Newt Hopkins has to be mentioned with that.
Oh, without a doubt.
Hopkins had about a 2-year stretch where he was the best wide receiver in football because he wasn't playing with an Aaron Rodgers or a C.J. and it took a while for Deshaun to get there. It didn't matter who the quarterback was, T.J. Yates and all type of Brock Osweiler, all type of madness. Excuse me. And Nuke Hopkins was going out there putting on numbers. So Nuke will fall short to C.J. and J.J. Watt in this contest. The best draft selection for the organization, but he does deserve a mention. Does Nuke Hopkins?
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a great point to bring up, especially where they took him 27th overall in that first round. You know, the knock on him was speed coming out, and then he came in that first year. I remember being at the game against the Panthers, and he made this ridiculous catch down the sideline for a touchdown in the corner. Beat the corner, just went up and just snatched it. It was just like, oh man, they got another Andre Johnson here. And you know, honestly, if Bill O'Brien doesn't happen, DeAndre Hopkins is playing the majority of his career here, and he's going to pass Andre and all those numbers. He's getting real close now. I think he's about to get to 1,000 receptions. We'll see if I would guess he can pull that off playing with Lamar Jackson up there. He's close to 1,000 receptions, and he's right near 13,000 yards. I mean, Andre was over 1,000 receptions and 14,000 yards in his career. That's a Hall of Famer. I think DeAndre Hopkins probably got a pretty good chance of actually getting in the Hall of Fame because he had more touchdowns than Andre Johnson as well. But yeah, without a doubt, I mean, that pick was a phenomenal pick. It just got ruined because of a dictator that was running the joint and decided. I remember that. That was what was sad. That's when the Texans era really started to fall apart. They traded him because one of the things that got out there from sources, which the source was always Bill O'Brien, he had a problem with baby mamas and stuff, is what he said, showing up around them. It was embarrassing for Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I do remember the scuttlebutt about that. In the comments section, you got Brandon says, JJ, King Kobe, 713 Gaming. He says, Andre Johnson. Texas Tangents says, the Watt pick is number 2, Andre Johnson number 1. So
that's fine too. You could go back and forth on those two. I don't have a huge issue with that.
So I ask you this, and this is something that we can kind of ride off into the next segment. Mm-hmm. Where are the Texans? What if Caserio didn't like Bryce Young? CJ goes number 1 to Carolina. Bryce Young is not the pick, and they punt on taking the quarterback in the first round in 2023. Maybe they go grab one of those guys in 2024, Jaden Daniels. Maybe the team would have been bad enough to bottom out and get Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. But just think about, when you think about how critical CJ Stroud is, what if this team doesn't have CJ? What does this overall operation look like over there at NRG? It's scary to think about. And I'm glad we don't have to be, inundated with those games.
It's scary to think about if you just flipped it 1 and 2. If CJ did go 1, like you mentioned, and Bryce, they liked Bryce.
Yeah,
we heard a lot of. Yeah, we heard a lot of things that they like Bryce. I mean, who knows at the end of the day if they actually like Bryce or not? But what if you took? And I liked Bryce Young in college. I watched all of his college games. My wife went to Alabama, so we watched him, and I loved him. And I thought he's going to be a great pro coming in. Not that he still can't have a chance, but I mean, look, so far in the league, it's not looked great, right?
He cut it on the second half of the season or late in that season. They kind of put something together there in Carolina, and they saw, if you squint real hard, you might see a guy that give you something. A lot of people think that Bryce has some upside, but I'll leave that to my native Carolina down there in Charlotte and Uptown, where Bank of America Stadium resides. Here in Houston, over there off Kirby, we got a bad dude named C.J. Stroud, and I think he's going to have the Texans certainly winning the division, and I think he's going to have them in the postseason. Can he elevate again with a remixed offensive line and a remixed wide receiver room and another first-time play caller? Can they put it all together and get this team to the promised land? If he does, C.J. Stroud will go down in history, I think. Not necessarily as the most beloved, not necessarily as the best overall Texan, but in terms of a Texans draft selection, C.J. Stroud right now.
Well, and he could be getting the help of another draft pick that we didn't even mention. Nico Hopkins. Nico Collins. Nico Collins is a great pick. It's a third-round pick.
Third-round pick. Caserio's first draft, the Davis Mills draft. Nico has developed. Talk about playing with some quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That Davis Mills situation, Nico found a way to overcome it, got his body together, got healthy. So they're going to need Nico down the stretch. Can you believe it? We made it through a show without talking about the wide receiver room.
Almost.
I was also
add Jaden Higgins to the mix. He's going to be the best draft pick in Texans history. I just had to mention it just so you could, I could trigger you a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how about this?
Yeah.
Right now, there are only 2 second-round picks that have been signed. It's the linebacker in Cleveland. I think he was the second pick behind Higgins in the second round. Only 2 second-rounders have been signed, both of those gentlemen with guaranteed contracts. So the other second-round picks across the National Football League and their representation going at these GMs. Nick Caserio setting a precedent for second-round picks. That's their problem. We got our guys signed. We're ready to roll.
Ready to roll, and we are ready to roll into the football season as well. Well, Stan, parting shots as we say goodbye. Our hour flew by once again. Would you like to tell the kind people as we head off into our weekend?
Just want to tell everybody that's watching this live and downloading this that we certainly appreciate you supporting the show growing. You know what I mean? And again, to the late DJ Screw, man, H is up. Everybody have a good, safe weekend. Beyonce in town. Happy DJ Screw Day. Enjoy yourselves. We appreciate it. Training camp, be here before you know it. Back into the schedule on Tuesday, second quarter of the 2025 Texans schedule.
That is right. And as I will give my parting shot is pray for your boy this weekend at Beyonce because his wife is going to make him wear clothes that don't belong being worn in the summer. And I'm going to be hot.
Wear those glasses. A man, you either got to wear your glasses or you got to convince people you either work at Lowe's, or Home Depot. You got to become an expert in lighting or flooring. Don't let your eyes get you in trouble in that NRG.
They're going to be locked on her, man. Locked the whole night.
Oh, it's going to be some sights in that NRG on Saturday and Sunday. Good Lord.
I'll give you a report on Tuesday.
Please do.
All right. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Tuesday at 6 p.m. for the Locked On Texans Squad Show.